Welcome to Jackal DIY and Tech. In today's video, we'll take a look how to connect an Arduino based board, in this case an ESP32 C3 Supermini, which is a very tiny board and also quite cheap, to an LCD screen, and I will have to take a look at what this specific model is. Now on Amazon you can get them for about $4 each, and they sell 3 in a pack, so I think that's a decent price. When it comes to, let's say, AliExpress, it's basically the same price for one, so €3.50, but you do have a longer delivery. Now before we get to this stage, let me just unplug it. And as you can see, if you mess with it, once it is connected, you will get some strange characters. And also I cannot unplug everything, because I have jammed the ground with these pins. So I can disconnect pretty much everything except the ground, because I have stuck these two pins together. And this is for the button that I will be using, but you don't have to use it. As for the display, it looks like this. It has 16 characters and 2 rows, and on the back is the I2C chip, so it only has 4 pins. If you don't have this, then you will basically have to connect all of these pins, which is why it's ideal if you do use the LCD with this combo board already attached. And this also has the names of the pins, so you have the ground, the VCC, the SDA and the SCL, which is for the communication. Now when you connect the pins to the voltage, in this specific case I did have to connect it to 5 volts. It did work with 3.3 volts, but no text would be displayed. So the brown is ground, the red is VCC, so voltage. Now when you make the connection, make sure that the ground is connected to the ground on the chip that you're using. In this case I'm using the ESP32 C3 Supermini. The VCC, which is the voltage, while it did run on the 3 volts or 3.3 volts, nothing would show up. So I'm now using 5 volts. And the SDA and the SCL, this is for the communication, and we will specify these 2 pins in the code using Arduino IDE. Now what may happen when you get everything finally up and running is that you won't see anything on the screen. Currently I do see some faint rectangles, but if you don't see anything, you have a potentiometer on the back and simply adjust it to the left or to the right until you see something. At this moment it's all the way to the right, and now it's all the way to the left. Now I can't see anything. You should also not be able to see anything. And I think I have set it to something like this, so that you could also see the text, but I will see once I actually display it. This is just some cable that I'm using, so you can see the screen, hopefully. So it doesn't play any role besides tilting the screen up. And now for the fun part, we actually have to go into the Arduino IDE. Now the first thing that you want to do is obviously install the board that you are using, in this case the ESP32 C3 Supermini. So under the preferences you will have to replace this board manager URL. This one is using the ESP8266. So simply search for one that uses, or that will give you, all of the boards using the ESP32. Once you have that done, you will be able to go to the port. You have to have the board connected with USB to the PC, and in this case it's on COM3, so I do have to select it. And in this case, for the board, I'm using the MakerGo ESP32 C3 Supermini, which I would have to go and scroll all the way down, but we have a lot of boards, so I can simply go up, move my mouse away, and press up to go all the way down, and then simply search it from the bottom, and it is this one. You will need a library, maybe not at the start. What we can do is check the connection with the LCD. So this is the first piece of code, and what this does is that it will most likely give you this value, but if it does not, you will have to replace the values that I'll be showing with the value that you get. So at the moment, this is the only thing that I need. I will upload the sketch, and once it's done, under the serial monitor on the top, this will pop up. So this is now done. I can go to the serial monitor, and I should see something, but I'm not seeing anything. It says it's not connected, but it is. It definitely is. But what is not connected are the two pins. So with the wire library, which is included, as you can see, this wire library is included in the ESP32 package. So that is why you do need the board manager. And with this library, we can specify which pin does what. So with the wire begin, 6 and 7, as you can see, this is the SDA and the SCL. So we do need to connect these two pins, which I don't have connected at the moment. So the yellow one is SCL, which means that the yellow one should be pin 7 and the orange one is pin 6. Now at the moment nothing is happening, so I will have to upload the sketch again. I would not need to upload the sketch, but because all of the connections are very flimsy, I do not want to unplug and plug the cable back in. Now this is strange, as you can see nothing is happening when the code should be running. Just to make sure that everything is still up and running, I will comment out this code and let's go to the next section, which is basic LCD display. So we also need the wire library because we do need to make changes how we'll connect the pins. We will initialize the LCD and also turn on the backlight, display some text which will be LCD 1602 test, or this will be printed out in the serial monitor and on the LCD on the top left, so 00. We will write Jackal DIY and Tech, and on the character 0 and line 1, so the second row, we will print out this text. Now where do you get this library? You will have to go to the book icon, type in liquid crystal, and as you can see I have one installed. Let me just go with installed. As you can see I have two liquid crystal libraries installed, but you need this one which has the I2C by Frank. Now if you don't have the I2C communication, I believe you can use this one, but in that case you will also need a lot more wires to connect the LCD. So let us upload this sketch. So I guess the serial monitor was bugging a bit. Now that I've closed it and opened it again, it does show up. And also, more importantly, the LCD also displays some text, which I do not think you can see, so let me make some adjustments. So yeah, you do see some text, but now we have an issue, and that issue is that the second line does not display the whole text. And that is the physical limit of the display because it can only display 16 characters. So what can we do? Well, we could scroll it so you see everything, and that is the second example that I've done. So let me uncomment this section, and this piece of code will scroll the text to the left, but it has hard-coded values. But in any case, let me show you how that looks like. And this is basically the whole piece of code. What has been changed? I have changed the loop. As you can see, previously nothing was in the loop. This time we go from character 0 to character 18. We increment by 1 based on the text length. And we scroll or shift the display to the left and we wait for 1 second. So uploading this sketch, what do you expect the LCD to do? Most likely you expect the text to scroll or shift to the left, which is exactly what it does. But it also does a little bit more than that, doesn't it? So it's scrolling everything, the bottom and the top row, which is probably not what you would want. Maybe you only want to scroll the bottom row or the rows that are longer than what the actual display can display. So that could be useful for menus, maybe. So let me comment out this section and let's take a look at the second option, which will be scroll text to the left based on its length, but do it automatically. So previously we had hard-coded values, and also when I previously mentioned this value, this is how you specify how the LCD will communicate. So this is the address that the LCD communicates on, and then you specify the number of characters. In this case, the display has 16, and the number of rows, in this case, 2. In this example, I have specified the menu, so 4 menus in total. Since I want to go over the menu options, I need to put that into an integer, and this is the current option that is selected, so by default 0. So the top row will be select option, and on the bottom row we will have these texts displayed, but they will switch automatically. So we'll have some pause between the scrolling, 1 second. We will display the text that we get from the menu options, and the current option is the one that we will display. This will do the scrolling, so it will be a little bit faster than before, and we will also wait a little bit before the item changes. And once it does, we will clear the text, so the whole content, input the content again, and then we will display the current option again, which in this case will increase by 1. So in essence, it will go from the first item to the second item, third item, and fourth item. And this modulo operation means that once we get to element 4, so starting from 0, this one is 0, 1, 2, 3, and this one will then also display when the number is 4. So basically anytime, at least in this case, when we have a multiple of 4, we will start with the first item. So let me upload this sketch, and that is exactly what we should see once it finishes uploading. So as you can see, we have all of the options. If the text is short enough, nothing is animated. If the text is longer, then the whole content is being scrolled over. So now we do have the menu, but now we just want to affect the second row and leave the first one as is. So let me comment out this section and let's move to the second last, which is this one, change text on button press and scroll left and right automatically. So this section of the code is a little bit longer, but we are just adding to what we have already done. So this time I want to implement a button which is on pin 3 of the ESP board. So this will be connected to pin 3 and the white one is connected to ground, and I will be using this tiny red button, but you can use any button that you want. You could even just short out the contacts of the wires like this. This is exactly what the button does. It just looks a little bit fancier. So the button is now connected and we have a boolean value which will take a look if the button is pressed, and by default it is not pressed, so it is false. And we have a text dynamic length value which is set to 0 at the start. For the button we also specify that this will be an input with a pull-up. So this is the pin mode, some text that we will display in the serial monitor, and in the setup we will call the update menu, which is this function. So we will clear the LCD, set the first row to this value, and then we'll have the menu options with the current option, and the text length will be the length of the menu option. And we will specify that as the second row in the LCD screen. Then we have the loop section, which looks if the button is pressed. Then we'll have some delay for the debounce, otherwise this could be active all of the time. And maybe I could lower this value down or maybe increase it. I would have to do some more testing. So when it is being held down, we have to wait for the button release before we increase the menu option. So this will switch to the next menu option, and it does call the update menu. And based on the text length dynamic that we get in the update menu, we will then scroll the text. So if the text is longer than the LCD can display, it will scroll, otherwise it will do nothing. So the scroll text function is this one, which is the last one. It looks if the text is longer than 16 characters, since that is the physical limit of the LCD. We pause for 3 seconds before scrolling, otherwise it would start scrolling immediately. So in this way you do have the time to read what it actually says before it starts scrolling. Then it scrolls to the left, delays at the end for 1 second, and then it scrolls back to the right by using the scroll display left and the scroll display right. So let's upload this code. So as you can see, it is scrolling left and right, but it's still scrolling both of the rows, so that will be the last step. But in this step I do want to show you the working of the button. When I just press it, it doesn't change it immediately, and I would probably have to time it just right. But if I hold it a little bit and release it, now it has changed to the next menu option. So when the text is longer, then I have to hold in the button. I think that has to do something with the animation. So this is the third option. And because the animation was not happening, that switched automatically to the new menu option, as will this one. But when the animation is playing, or it will play because the text is longer than the LCD can display, then at least with this piece of code that I have at the moment, the text does not immediately switch to the next menu option, but I think it does switch when it goes from left to right if I hold the button down and then release it. But now this one is not switching immediately, which is a little bit strange to say the least. So at least when it comes to the animation and switching the menu options instantly, or at least when you press the button, this section does need a little bit of tweaking. So now let me show you the last piece of code. So this one also changes the text on button press. It scrolls left and right, but only the second line, and it is done automatically. So it's not hard-coded values. So we're checking if we're scrolling to the left, what the scroll time is since we last scrolled, the scroll position, and if we are currently scrolling. These are the new variables. Anything else that is different? So we have this section. So scroll text smoothly without blocking menu changes. So we will take a look if this now smoothly changes. And in the update menu, now millis is just a function that gives you milliseconds, and we subtract the last scroll time value, and if that is equal or greater than 300 milliseconds, then we'll scroll the text and set the last scroll time to the current millisecond value. In the update menu, what I found is that I had to add some spaces, in this case 3 spaces, after the text. Otherwise, I had some strange issue with the scrolling. It appeared as if the text was scrolling even though it was not supposed to. In here we check for the text length to display only in the second row the text that we want, and set the is scrolling value to false, and if it is greater than 16, then we add the padded text substring, which is this one, set the scroll position and enable the scrolling, so we will scroll and the scroll direction to the left will be true. Then we have the scroll text, which does the actual scrolling, and now this function can look a little bit intimidating at first, but even if you do not understand what it's doing, and even if you do not know how to code, you can still make this project. I know I did, and you can bet that I do not know how to write this piece of code. So I simply asked ChatGPT to give me the solution to my problem, and this is what it came up with. Is it exactly what I wanted? Let's check it out. So now only the second row is animating, and as you can see it's a little bit fast, or at least it may look fast. But without the spaces attached at the beginning, this animation did not look correct. But now let me press the button, and as you can see it does not switch immediately, but it is a lot better than before. Now the second option is a lot longer. So once the animation started, I was able to switch the menu. This one was instant, as was this one. So switching is a lot better than it was before. Maybe I'll just have to tweak the delay a little bit so you can press faster, and I think this is what the debounce does. I'm not saying that the code that I have is the best. It does work, but definitely needs some tweaking. But for a proof of concept that you can make a menu out of it quite easily just using ChatGPT, if you know what to ask it, then you can definitely get something useful, but it does help if you know which settings you have to tweak to make the animation and the button play nicely together, which in this case they do not. Now if you have any suggestions for the menu and the button to work nicely together, let me know in the comments down below. Also, if you found the video helpful, subscribe to the channel to get more content like this, and we'll do something else in the next one.